sometimes when people approach this topic, their mind goes straight to the brand part. What does my LinkedIn profile picture look like? Should I create a website? What should my Instagram aesthetic be? But I really like the Venn diagram that you chose here because it shows more of the personal side, how you see yourself. And to me, that's what personal branding is really about. How are you making an effort to always be growing and doing the things that you love? And if you create a habit of reflecting on the person you are and the person you want to be and creating a path to get there, then the rest just kind of falls into place, right? So the biggest step is understanding your identity and acknowledging that it's going to change over time. And that's why identity is really the foundation of everything we're going to be talking about today.
Personal brand yourself. How are you getting out there? How are employers seeing you? We're familiar with this whole phrase, but where do we even get started? Maybe you have a social media brand and you feel good about how you're presenting yourself to your peers and your friends and family on social media, but maybe you haven't started to think about professional yet, or vice versa. Or maybe you're like, I just need to start somewhere. I don't know really where to get going. We're going to break it down. We're going to make it not as this big overarching brand and look at it into these 4 different categories you see here. These are some ways that you can start kind of breaking that down. Who you are kind of really goes into your values, what drives you, your personality, how you describe these different behaviors you do, your interests and hobbies, what subjects really are capturing your attention.
So I used to work with a lot of startup clients, and this is something we would ask them to get them thinking about their brand and really challenge them to narrow it down. For me, my 3 words, I would say determined, creative, and outspoken.
This next component or pillar of your brand is social. A lot of the times we hear here at the Select Group, you are who you spend time with. When we're hiring, we're like, we have high performers. We know you have them too, right? You're connected with people who have that same interest as you do sometimes. So thinking about that from a personal brand standpoint, you want to make sure that you are interacting and surrounding yourself with people who might have similar answers to these questions that you had to this question of who am I and those values and missions and whatnot. There's plenty of studies out there too that show that if your close friends are sharing those same values, it's going to boost your confidence and that sense of self to help influence your behavior and make sure that it's in a positive way, right? It's pushing you to share more of your interest and know more people in this area. So Jennifer, I'm interested to hear from you too, being involved in communities with people who share those same passions, whether that's virtually or in person, what has that really offered you?
Great question. And I actually have a little story I'd like to share around this. So I really like to exercise, and it's something I've been doing for a while. But at first, I really only engaged in very independent sports like running or weightlifting, things you do by yourself, until I was challenged by a friend to try rock climbing, which is a very social sport. And I was extremely nervous when I started, not because I'm scared of heights, but because I was terrified of trying new things in front of people. I never wanted there to be witnesses to my failure. And so I had this habit of always needing to try something new by myself and perfect it or get it right before I would do it publicly. And this is something that I really wanted to overcome. So I started rock climbing, and there is nothing like falling on your butt over and over again in front of a bunch of strangers to humble you. And what I learned is that it's actually totally freeing to fail in front of other people. And it actually makes the process of learning better because you have people you can laugh about it with. And I became really comfortable with asking for help from people who have skills that I don't have. So you never know what life-changing lessons you're going to learn by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and trying something new that you're interested in, especially if you're scared of failing at it. And you might also go to an event for something that you already have experience in, but you'll still be pushing yourself to collaborate with new people, try something in a different way, and get constructive feedback. So getting involved in communities like these is going to help you meet people who share your interests, but have a different perspective. And you're going to learn skills that translate into both your personal and your work life.
I love that. I just wrote that down. Failing in front of people is freeing, because as you were sharing that story, literally in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, me too. Like I refuse to run with anybody else because I know I'm awful at it. And that stops me, right? And it keeps me from, doing those things that I'm nervous about or not certain I'm good at. And I definitely feel that on a personal level as well. So I just wrote that down. I'm going to be on the lookout for some things that give me an opportunity to fail in front of other people and learn from other people. And speaking of that too, there might be other people on the call as well that are unsure to how to find these communities, or whether they're in person or online, but like where to really go to start connecting with people who might have similar interests. So what suggestions might you have for somebody who wants to start, getting out there and finding connections to people who have the same interests that they do?
Yeah, so for online communities, I would definitely recommend checking out meetup.com, things like Twitch or Reddit. I really like these resources because you can get really niche with interests when you go online. You can also check out the websites of companies and organizations that you like to see whether they have any online events coming up or maybe some sort of like member newsletter that can keep you in the loop. For in-person events, when and if it's safe for you, try Googling whether your city has any online event calendars you can reference. Those are usually pretty easy to find, and they've really helped me find a lot of cool stuff going on in my own town in the past. You can also do things like signing up for a local class, and maybe looking for volunteer opportunities that are related to your interest. Let's see. A lot of people also use Facebook to organize local events, so that's another great option. And also, just ask your friends. You might know people who have recommendations for communities that they're already involved with that they can introduce you to.
Can't believe it's been a year now, but it changed a lot, right? And one big thing though is we're staying connected with each other, whether that's in work, our hobbies, with our classmates, our peers, etc. So on this slide you can see how the select group is trying to stay connected. Lots of virtual meetings, safely volunteering, masks on and whatnot, but it can be a little bit demotivating, I think, when you're so used to these in-person events, or maybe you did have, a hobby that you did in person, but maybe COVID, it's no longer safe to do so, or there's restrictions not allowing you to be a part of those. So how do you find that you're able to stay motivated and really be able to be your authentic self, live into these hobbies and passions you have within the current climate, knowing that maybe some aren't able or available right now?
Staying motivated. For me, that has by far been the hardest thing about COVID. We just went over some of the online resources that are available, but sometimes that's just not enough, right? We get bored of computer screens and we get bored of staying at home so much. And something that's really helped me is having an accountability partner. A few months into COVID, I was feeling really stuck and very unmotivated. And I started having weekly calls with my brother. And we'll catch up on normal life stuff, but we also always make a point to talk about our careers and wellness. And we update each other on some of our goals and struggles that are associated with those things. And just talking about it like that and knowing that I have that call to look forward to every week has really helped me get into a healthy routine. And, my brother is someone who really challenges me to constantly think about how I'm bettering myself and approaching things from new perspectives. So if you're struggling with motivation right now, try to find that person who inspires you that you can share your aspirations and your progress with, or look to your employer for resources. At TSG, we have a book club, we do wellness events, coaching groups, and these are places where you can find connections and commit to that recurring event that'll hold you accountable and, kind of make you put yourself out there. And, if you don't have anything like that, then just try writing your goals down regularly or finding another outlet where you can track your progress.
Online, so this is that next pillar that we talked about, right? Your identity, who are you working, around and surrounding yourself with. Now we're going to online. More than ever, we can all agree, I would assume, that we are using the internet to stay connected. But even before the pandemic hit, majority of people were online still, right? Maybe that was social media or utilizing in some different way. But I definitely want to start challenging you all to think about how you're using your social media. Is this an outlet where you're able to share with your friends and family who you are? And do you have a LinkedIn? Are you using this as a way to share who you are with your professional network? And just start thinking kind of how we're utilizing that and presenting ourselves to make sure we're helping ourselves and not hurting ourselves. Jennifer, I want to hear from you in our virtual world. again, we've talked about it's so important to know how we're presenting ourselves, but how can we really make sure we are being intentional when we're using these different social medias or professional resources online to make sure that we are developing a brand and a voice across these various platforms?
Yeah, so if you're trying to share your voice and create an online brand, then you can't just be a lurker or someone who passively hits like on a post and moves on. If you're sharing an article on LinkedIn or something, instead of just reposting it, challenge yourself to add your own comments about the content that you're sharing. And then on a similar note, I'd also encourage you guys to, contribute original content instead of just consuming content. Maybe you have experience writing for school or for work, but you haven't written anything on your own time in a while about a topic you care about. Or maybe you're learning a skill like how to video edit. So you decide to record some stuff to share with your network. Creating a platform like this for yourself helps energize you and it holds you accountable when you're learning new things and honing your skills. So try to think of which social media profiles you can use almost like a journal for your progress. People are going to start to notice and remember your work if you're consistent about that. And eventually you're going to have this whole portfolio of materials that you can reference later.
From your personal stance, how are you being intentional with social media when it comes to wanting to show that both personal and professional types of achievements?
Well, like most of us, I could do a better job of it. But I'm really interested in the way people use and are affected by social media. So I've done a lot of introspective thinking here. And for me, I found that Instagram in particular was a source of stress. So I actually decided to stop posting pictures of myself for over a year and only posted art that I created. And my my mediocre drawings and paintings didn't really get much attention compared to perfectly manicured selfies, but they were so much more rewarding because they actually had meaning behind them. And honestly, getting comments about a hobby that I love was a lot more validating than any comments about my appearance. So I think that those posts say a lot more about me than most pictures of me. I also unfollowed a lot of like mindless subreddits and influencer accounts and replaced them by following topics that are more related to my career and personal interests. And that way I'm at least getting something when I'm passively scrolling through my phone in bed. And I'm not saying that you should stop posting selfies or always have to use the internet for productivity because memes are important, but definitely consider ways that you can share a different side of yourself on social media, even if it means doing something different or being vulnerable and putting your work out there for others to judge.
Jennifer, I have been jotting down a lot of things that you've been saying and just the tips that you have. And I feel like in each area, you've been able to really show kind of how you've come to this brand of your own and, in your career grown. You've been in this space for 5+ years, you were mentioning, and, figuring out those passions, how to get out of your comfort zone, how you can have accountability for your goals and really challenge to better yourself and just being intentional. Like, all of these things are amazing and really big jumps into who you are, being confident in who you are. So I'm curious, in your opinion, looking at how you've done all of this and where you are today, do you feel like the things that we've been mentioning and, being intentional in these areas has had an effect on where you've gotten?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a snowball effect, right? I've been at networking and other local events where one thing led to another, and I ended up with, a new job opportunity or a mentor. And because I post regularly on LinkedIn and Instagram, I've had people reach out to me over the years asking about my work. And, it goes both ways. You can start conversations with other people, asking them for advice or collaborations. And most people are really receptive. So that's been helpful for me too. But, it's more than just networking, though. It's about being prepared for those opportunities when they do come up, right? So when you're in a job interview, you're going to answer questions about your education and your career experience, but you should also be prepared for questions like, can you tell us a little about yourself? What are you passionate about? What do you do in your spare time? Sometimes these can be the hardest questions to answer. So you never know what's going to resonate with someone, and being prepared to discuss who you are and what you're all about is going to vastly increase your confidence in those situations and make you more memorable. And this goes for any introduction too, not just jobs. When someone asks, what do you want to just say your job title? Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a digital marketer. Or do you want to say, I'm Jennifer, I'm a digital marketer and artist, and right now I'm focused on learning more about UX design? So you want to be able to confidently and honestly talk about your interests and experience beyond where you went to school or your job title. And that's what good personal branding is.
I don't know if anybody else could tell, but even the difference of how you said, "Hi, I'm Jennifer and a digital marketer," to then including more about you and not just your job title, you lit up, right? You could see the confidence and just, what you're saying. I think that's great advice. And, we're no longer just bringing that professional self. We've got to look well, you're a well-rounded candidate, right? You're not just bringing this piece of you to your job. So I think that's amazing. And I appreciate you sharing about your journey and just where you've gotten and how that's all led to here, to the successful career you're having here at the Select Group.